And I should have let myself but I couldn't have. Oh no, I couldn't have. I always open my gut when I shouldn't have. Oh no, I shouldn't have.
Batsheva. Is that how I say it?
You perfect, Batsheva. You got it.
That's a beautiful name, man.
Thank you. It's Hebrew. It's biblical.
Really?
Yes, it is the wife of David. I didn't remember the story. This is great. This, I don't get to say this very often, but if you go back to the Bible, King David saw a woman taking a bath on the building next door, and she was beautiful, and he decided he wanted her, and he sent somebody over to get her, and they brought her over, and they had sex, and then he sent her husband out to the army, to the front lines to get killed. And yes, it's a pretty terrible story. It was a bad story about David, who was generally a good guy, but he got killed. Her husband died. He married Bathsheba, and then they had Solomon was their son, and he built the temple. I know. It's like, there you go. So you have a little Bible study course going on here, but people always say, oh, is that story like how you got into your field? Did that set you up for a field of sexuality? And I'm like, nah, I don't think so, but it's fun.
I was like, yeah, okay, cool. If we dig deep enough, we're always going to end up in some sort of commonality, right? It's
exactly.
Like, we're going to end up spinning ourselves around in a fucking circle here. Like, that's already, yeah. Like in recent times, I've been trying to learn a little bit more about the old biblical stories in whatever sense, whether it's the Bhagavad Gita, whether it's the Quran, whether it's the Bible or whatever, because I didn't grow up nothing, right? I literally grew up nothing. I'm like, God never made it here. It's too cold. It's too violent. We're just going to kind of crack on and we learn from the streets. And it's like, well, if stories have stood the test of time, there's probably at least a piece of wisdom in it.
Right.
So it's like, what can we take from it? And then maybe we're going to discard some, maybe we're going to take some, but what can we learn? Be curious.
I think that's true. I think that all religions have their own kind of mythology. And I think it's fascinating what different cultures have done with the mythology. And when you start learning them, you start realizing how similar some of the stories from these, places are. I grew up, actually, it's interesting. I grew up as an observant Orthodox Jew. I still, define myself as that. And people are always struck by that, religious Orthodox Jewish woman as a sex therapist. That doesn't seem to, it doesn't jive for most people, but it works for me.
Hey, I love it.
Right. I think part of it also was I felt like I got sucky at sex education growing up. I don't know how you felt about your sex education, but I felt like it was terrible. And so I felt sort of a responsibility to get out there and see if I could make things better for people.
How do I feel about the sex ed? I think I actually learned from the Kama Sutra.
As a teenager?
Yeah.
Really? How'd that happen?
To be honest, I was thinking about this. I was thinking about this conversation. I was like, okay, well, how did things start for me mentally? Like plugging pieces together mentally before any of the physical stuff. And I'm like, well, I saw there was a difference in how people acted and spoke about sex, male and female. Males kind of elevated and they got this kind of bravado thing and they were really wanting to talk about it. And then ladies, at least the environment I was from, seemed like they were sheltering themselves, right? And I just thought, hold on a minute. If there was like two people coming together, there must be equality. And we're preaching about this equality, right? Everyone likes to stand on the high level and be like, oh yeah, we're all equal. And I'm like, well, I know I'm only a kid, but that doesn't look equal. One looks intimidated by the whole thing and one looks like they're taking over the reins. So I don't know. I just kind of always thought, I was like, well, whenever this thing actually starts happening, you can't be that dude that overshadows a lady because they're going to feel intimidated simply because of your presence. I think that's where it came from.
That's astonishing. At what age was that? And then you went and found the Kama Sutra?
Yeah, literally started reading it.
Fascinating. And then when did you actually start using it? Like, how old were you? If you don't
16.
mind my asking, I realize that we're asking in front of your thousands of your best friends, but how old were you when you first started using it?
16. Yeah.
Got it. It's very average age for starting, so it's fascinating. Yeah.
Yeah, back home, like in the north of England, Manchester, where I came from, like things happen really young, mate. Like it's actually, as an adult now looking back, it's frightening. You know, and you're almost like, this is sex, drugs, alcohol, smoking, violence, like you name it, right? Let's call it antisocial behavior.
Well, I wouldn't call sex antisocial behavior.
No. But like, okay, let's take that one out of there. That's very social behavior. Oi, oi.
No, but I get it. Being active sexually before you're ready, maybe a
Yeah,
problem.
yeah, for sure. Psychologically, physiologically, emotionally. And it's almost people are just like chucked in the deep end, right? And you're like, okay, there's going to be sinking, there's going to be swimmers and sinkers. All right. But like, we're harming so many people if we're just like, oh, you're going to learn from mistakes. It's like, we got to be able to open up this conversation beforehand,
Was
right?
was there a lot of teenage pregnancy?
Yeah, man.
Yeah, I'm guessing because there probably was not a lot of good education about birth control.
Of course not.
Right.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
it's fucking, and the next thing you know, they're coming in and they're doing their exams in school and they've got a kid in the pram. And you're like, dude,
Yep.
I can't pay attention because your kid's crying. Can you just pack it in?
Right.
But it's one of those
Right.
ones.
Yep. We do such a terrible job as a society dealing with adolescents. And it's so fascinating, Alex, because I talk to parents and some parents, they're just afraid of like giving their kids information. They feel like they don't want to open, they're little kids. They don't want to sort of
Yeah.
paint them. And like every single study, there's a lot of things there's not data on, but this one there is tons. And every single study shows that the earlier you talk to your children about sex, the younger they are, the more likely they are to become active a little bit later, to be more thoughtful about it, to use birth control, to not get into situations that they didn't want to be in. Study after study after study talks about that. And yet we're just scared. We're fucking scared to talk about sex. I don't know what that is, but that's the reality.
It's weird, man. Like you actually see people shell up, you know, their shoulders kind of roll forward, their eyes kind of close. They're like, they just want to shelter away. They start stepping back. And you're like, dude, we all like it. You know, the
But
very,
talking about it is different, like I could be in a room full of 100 parents and I can say, how many of you are comfortable talking to your kids about sex? And like 90 hands go up. And then I say, well, how many of you have actually talked about sex with your kids in the last 2 months? And no hands go up, right? Like
wow.
we think we're comfortable talking about sex. We think we can do it. And then yet we get stuck. And I see couples all the time where like, it's just some of the communication issues are they're scared to talk about it. Like
Yeah.
there's something that I think it makes us very vulnerable. I think there are very few things in our life that make us feel as vulnerable as talking about sex with somebody. It's even more vulnerable sometimes than doing it. Like when I have little kids, when I have 17-year-old kids I'm talking to, I'll say, one very strong piece of advice is you shouldn't be doing it unless you can talk about it. And they all look at me like I'm crazy because they're having oral sex, they're having, intercourse, they're doing a million things, but they can't talk about it. And I feel like when we could talk about it, then it changes the world when it comes to sex. When we can talk to our partners about it, when we talk to our children about it, when we talk to each other about it. And it's a fear that people feel, I'm telling you, sometimes it's easier for people to have sex, not sometimes, often. It's easier for people to have sex than actually have honest conversations about sex. And that's really fucking frightening, Alex. I mean, it's
Yeah.
not frightening. I mean, it's real. I mean, I don't know, I'm guessing you see it too, that people just have a hard time
Yeah.
talking about things.
Yeah, and I'm usually that guy that starts poking those ribs until it's actually okay for people to talk about things, you know, and hence why I joke around a lot when I, like, for example, take a class, coach a class, right? And I was like, I'm going to draw a line and we're all going to stand on this fucking line together. I was like, I don't care who you are, where you're from, what your ability, it doesn't matter. I'm going to poke everybody in the damn ribs and I'm going to make sure you know where my ribs are to poke me too. And it's like, yeah, cool. We are now all equal. Let's go get a dish of humble pie. And I think, you know,
You literally poke them in the ribs?
I was told I'm not allowed to do that anymore.
No, that's fine, as long as you warn people and sign up for it. But that's the idea. That is your idea. Like, I'm gonna poke you in the ribs and you're gonna poke me in the rib. Is that like the idea?
Socially and verbally, in terms of like, there's nothing we can't talk about here. You can talk to me about fucking anything. You can ask me anything. Like, we're all equal, and that is okay. Like, we can figure this out. And guess what? I'm not gonna know everything. Like,
Right.
I really won't. And I think that's the way to go about it, man. You know, you had the whole woke thing, and you can't joke about certain things, and you can't do this, and you can't do that. I was like, dude, like I'm not gonna be that way, right? Like the
You
thing
can poke
that
people, Alex. Feel free to poke people.
yeah, I think it's necessary. I really do. And you know what scares me is the fact that if you can't talk about it, I usually like to know where it leads. I don't know, it's
What,
just
you like
like
to know what? Say it
where it
again.
leads. I'm like, okay, if
Yep.
this happens, then what happens? You know, because one thing happens and then that's it, nothing happens. That's not life. I was like, where does it go? And if we're not allowed to talk about it, most amount of times, ladies who don't want to participate in that event end up going along with it.
Right.
And that breaks my heart, mate.
Right. And people feel, I have a client who is the most amazing person. She is beautiful and smart and successful, and she has pain when she has intercourse, and she just completely stops dating. And because she feels broken and she feels like there's something wrong with her. And we've been spending some time talking about the facts that there's a lot of other ways to have sex that don't involve a vagina and a penis. And there's going to be a lot of guys out there who would be love to have sex with her in other ways while she's working on this problem, but she can't talk about it. Like, she said, I feel so broken and so much shame that I can't have, like, the idea of my going out with somebody and getting close to them and talking to them about this just makes me want to just dig a hole and climb in. And I can't talk about it. People are like so uncomfortable. And it's so funny because I said to her, if you were dating a guy who needed to use Viagra, dating a 50-year-old guy, let's say, or a 45 or 50-year-old guy, for whatever reason, he needed to use Viagra, would you feel like he was so broken that you wouldn't want to go out with him? Like, that's ridiculous, right? And she's like, no, not at all. I wouldn't feel like that at all. I'm like, why do you feel like you are so broken that you can't have a relationship with somebody? But we don't even know if she could have a relationship with somebody because she can't talk about it, because we've gotten there's something about talking. I can't even imagine having that conversation with somebody. And that's sad, Alex. That's just sad.
I think I might know a answer to that, or a reason to that. I think dudes are really insecure. And because of that, we're on this fucking roller coaster of emotions. And that makes a lot of people on the receiving end of that shell up, right?
Right. I mean, the truth is, Alex, everybody's insecure when it comes to sex. I've yet
For
to meet
sure.
anybody. If I meet anybody who's really secure about sex, they're usually a sociopath. Like, you know what I mean? Everybody, guys think their penis is too small, their penis is too big, they last too long, they don't last long enough. They're out there to like prove that like the woman has to have an orgasm this way because otherwise it'll make them feel like they're less than. They're like, they feel like they don't know enough. The women are like, my body, he's gonna hate my body. I have an inch of fat, and I'm like, and I'm like, guys don't care. They don't care. I mean, some guys care, but most guys don't care. And the women are like, I don't know how to give oral sex properly. I don't, I'm afraid that he's going to look at me and think that I'm fat. I'm afraid that he's going to think that I don't know what I'm doing. Everybody is insecure about sex. Everybody. My vulva doesn't look nice. I didn't shave exactly the way somebody else shaves. Like, it's just chronic. We all feel so much shame when it comes to sex and our bodies. I mean, I mean, you probably deal with the bodies issue all day long, right?
Yeah, but it's usually a deeper thing, right? People are insecure about how they look, how they feel, or something. I was like, okay, great, but it's usually something going on upstairs that has then manifested itself downstairs, and don't get me wrong, both need addressing, you know, and we can't just be like, yeah, get fucked. Like, what's the real problem? You know, it's like, no. Like, you need to be able to create that space safe enough and open enough so where you can work on both. But the work doesn't stop once they get stronger, lose weight, be able to do this, do that. And it's like the work doesn't stop, mate. Like, we actually have to get to the epicenter of that problem, you
Right, because
know?
that's how they see themselves, right?
Yeah.
That's how they see themselves, right? And it doesn't matter if they lose the 10 pounds or, get stronger, if they still feel like they're the weakling that everybody's looking down on, that everybody's going to laugh at them. Correct, exactly. And so with the sex is often very similar as well. Like, but you have to work on both. I think that you were talking about it. I think that's 100% true that as a society, we have now bifurcated the brain and the body in a way
Yeah.
that is not helpful to anybody. And when it comes to sex, I can't think of a topic or a subject that's more bifurcated, like where they think, oh, it must be if she's not interested in sex, it must be a psychological problem. Well, not necessarily. Maybe it's a hormonal problem, or maybe it's a birth controls. Like, maybe we need to be looking at, or somebody's like not interested in sex, and like they're like, well, clearly it may be like he can't keep an erection. Well, clearly he needs a drug. Well, maybe a drug could be helpful, but maybe he's also feeling really insecure in a lot of ways, and that's getting in the way. So, I think more than any other area, although of course everybody sees their own area. So my area is sex. So that's where, but more than almost any other area, I feel like if we don't start understanding that the brain and the body are working in context with each other, we're not going to get anywhere. And the truth is that I feel like with sex, like there's sex medicine where people toss medicine at you, they toss hormones at you, they toss, they toss things at you. And then there's this therapist who say, oh, well, we just got to talk about it, talk about it, talk about it, talk about it. And my experience is that if you deal with the psychology and you deal with the physiology, you're going to have, it's not going to be A plus B, it's going to be A squared. Like the difference is dramatic. And that's my whole approach. That's everything I've done in the sex world, is say like enough is enough. We need to be understanding the physiology and the psychology and how those two things are working together. And then you can get incredible results. Sorry if I'm on a soapbox. I apologize.
No, please. I wish there was no time limit on it, but I'm certainly not paying Zoom. They make enough money. But we can start again some other time. But I got a question then. As a lady, what would you like men to know when either approaching this conversation, approaching women's health, approaching the topic, approaching the event? What would you like? What is the disconnect here? Like, because there's a blatant hole, right? There's a massive disconnect. What would you like dudes to know?
Okay, thank you for asking. I love that question. Best question ever. Okay. Number one, the size of your penis is irrelevant. Okay, I can't even like, so many men are worried about their penises being too small. I can't it's almost like it's like a disease. Like, men always think their penis is too small. Okay. The only time you need to worry about your penis is if it's too big. Okay, because in my thousands and thousands of women patients, I've had maybe 1 or 2 women complain that a penis was too small, and there were other things going on. But I have had some women complaining about the penis being too big, and so there was pain involved, and then we had to work with the woman to get her vagina to be stretched, a little more stretched. But I want to tell you that your penis is probably the least important part of your sexual being. I know that that's like either a light bulb going off or a horrifying fact for dudes to hear, but that is God's honest truth. Your penis it's important, but it is probably one of the least important things. Okay, that's number one. Number two, you need to ask her what she likes, because it doesn't matter if you were a stud and made Nancy super happy every night. Allison might want something totally different. There's no such thing as being good at sex that's universal. You know what I mean? Like, one woman loves oral sex and loves it when you go down on her, and that makes her feel happy and she has orgasms. And another woman is like, I can take it or leave it. I really want you to use your hand on me, or I really want you to tie me up, or I really want to use a vibrator because that's how I have an orgasm, or I really want you to talk dirty to me. Like, there's so many variations, and the only way you're gonna find out what she wants is by your asking. I mean, that, and the same thing for you. But so I think those are the two most important messages. Don't assume there's a universal good at sex thing. Don't assume that. And forget your fucking penis. It's important. Penises are really important. We could have a long conversation about penises, but I don't stop worrying about it. And I feel like sometimes it takes me 5 sessions with a guy until he can relax and believe that I'm actually telling him the truth.
It's true though. I think it's that false narrative, and I don't think it helps kids watching porn, right? Never mind
Oh my
adults.
God. Oh my God. I always say, you know, watching porn and thinking that you're going to get your sex education that way is like watching The Fast and the Furious and thinking that's going to help you're going to learn how to drive.
People try, mate. I've seen
What?
it. People try. I've seen it.
Yes, totally. I mean, it's ridiculous. Porn is entertainment. It's wonderful entertainment, but it needs to be seen like entertainment, right?
Mhm.
It's just it's entertainment. It's not education, and it's not real. I mean, when I talk to guys, I'm like, you know, you have to understand if you ever talk to a guy who works in porn, which I have, it takes them forever to get that shot, and they have to go in a certain angle from the penis. So they do angles, specific angles. The guys are usually on lots of medication. They choose guys with big penises. They put them on medication. They've got these angle shots that get distorted. It's just not real life. There's nothing real life about it. And most women, I mean, they make all kinds of stuff to help women have intercourse with guys whose penises are too long or too wide because it could be very painful. So I need your men to hear this. I really need it. Your penis is fine. Your penis is wonderful. Whatever your penis is, it's great. I promise you.
I'm sure that's going to help a lot of dudes and ladies too. You know, I think the point of asking and being in the conversation and being in the dance together, right? It's a playful endeavor. It's figuring each other out in this little weird space between us. It's like, yes, like that's okay. Sometimes we're gonna go a little left, and then other times we're gonna go a little right, and then we're gonna fuck it up and we're gonna laugh midway. It's like that's all right, mate. You've got to be in the dance because we got to be able to, okay. And the next thing you know, it's just like team sports. I don't even need to look where you are. You're there. I know you're there. You're supporting me. It's all good. You know, it's
I
like
think
you
that's,
learn each other.
I love that. I love it. Can I add a third thing that dudes should know?
Of course.
Okay. This is a statistic that is out there everywhere, but I need you guys to hear this, okay? 30% of women will have an orgasm from intercourse alone. That is 3 out of 10 women are going to have an orgasm from your penis and her vagina alone. Okay. Now, more women can have orgasms if they're using their own hand on their penis, their own hand on their clitoris at the same time. They could use a vibrator at the same time. They could have an orgasm before, they can have an orgasm after, but don't feel like something is wrong with your partner, and don't make her feel pressured or you feel pressured. That's like guys feel like, oh my God, if I can't make her orgasm with my dick, I'm just like, something's wrong with me. That is bullshit. There's not that much data. There's data on this. 3 out of 10 women, 30% of women can have orgasm that way. So if you can take it out of, you know, and I've had like, I had this woman come to my office once. It was very cute. And she was like, I have a problem. I can't have an orgasm from intercourse. You know, I'm listening to her. And I said to her, you know, that puts you in with 70% of women. Like most women can't. She's like, really? Because my boyfriend said to me that every woman he's ever been with has had an orgasm from intercourse. So like, I was like, well, there's a couple of possibilities. Either he just had a very skewed sample, right? Like it's possible that he had 3 girlfriends before and they all did it. I said, or they could have been making him think that they were having an orgasm when they actually weren't, or he never asked exactly, he just assumed, which I think happens a lot.
Yeah.
Anyway, she goes home, she comes back the next appointment, and she said, you know, when I talked to him about it, he said, I never said the other women had orgasms from intercourse. I just said they were having orgasms during intercourse. They were like using their own hand or they were using a vibrator. Again, this has to do with our communication. But I need guys to understand that that is not the case. That is just not the case. And if you want your lady to be happy, keep these statistics in mind. 3 out of 10 women will have an orgasm from a penis and a vagina. 70 to 80%, or seven women, or maybe 8 women will have an orgasm from your hand or your mouth. And 95% can have one with a vibrator. So don't take it personally if the lady you're with is happier using a vibrator and loves being with you and loves when you go down on her or loves to go down on you or loves to use her hand, whatever, and then wants to use a vibrator to have the orgasm, and you hold the vibrator, there's nothing wrong with orgasming in different ways. And I don't want guys to think that there's something fundamentally wrong with them if they can't have a woman orgasm from their penis alone, because it's not science.
Yeah, I think they fall into that trap when they have a prejudice of what it should look like and what it should feel like and the sequence. So it should be like A, B, C, done. And you're like, fuck's sake, like it's gonna evolve, it's gonna change day to day, parts in the cycle, right? Moods of a dude. We've got fluctuations in dudes' moods, whether it's what do they call it, like a man period or something. I don't know, but we all change, like day to day, month to month, week to week. How much have you slept? What have you eaten? The biggest thing that we ask dudes, and again, this goes back to nothing is off limits. I was like, can you get your dick out? Like, what do you mean? I was like, genuinely, do you struggle getting it up? Because if so, like your diet's probably a little off, your sleep is probably a little off. Maybe we're training too much. Maybe you're too stressed. What there's so many things that go into that bucket that create the outcome. It's like we have to be in the conversation to figure that out. It goes back to we have to be in the dance, and it can change. Some days we're doing the tango, other days we're doing the waltz. It's okay. It's all dancing.
No, I think it's great that you address that, because it's true. If a guy can't get his penis hard, if he can't get his dick up, then usually it depends on how old he is, right? I don't know, guys listening to this, but usually as you get older, it gets a little more difficult. The blood flows a little slower. The trap, holding the blood in is a little slower. But I would say for most men, they should be able to get hard pretty easily. And if they're not, then you're right. Then they need to be looking at their health. First of all, they should have their heart, it could be, it could be telling them something about their heart and they should be checked out. But it could also just be they're not getting good sleep. They're not getting enough sunlight. So their testosterone levels are dropping. Like there's so many other pieces of their life that are going to be impacting their, their ability to have an erection.
Agreed. I've got one question.
Yeah.
What are the 3 words you would tell your younger self?
3 words, like a phrase, 3 words, like you got this. You got this. I would say that you got this.
Mate, thank you so much. We're gonna have to do this again.
I'm here whenever you want. I love talking about this stuff, and you're great.
It's it's a topic that doesn't get the time of day, and I find it a massive disservice. And I find it a massive disservice in 2 demographics: 1, the younger population, and 2, the female population. And it hurts me, man. Like I said, before we started, like the big thing for me is like, how do we get people who have experienced trauma back into a physical environment so then they can gain autonomy over their body, right? And it breaks my soul that people experience trauma in a sexual way. I was like, this is supposed to be vulnerability at its finest, playful, and then also like the start of life being birthed, right? Like if we're going to go into like the reproductive sense, and using that power dynamic in a evil and sadistic way, it fucking breaks my soul. So at least to be a part of it and offer the conversation is an honor and a privilege. So thank you very much.
Oh, it's lovely being here. Thank you for having me.
Mate, we'll do it again. You have a wonderful evening, and we'll speak soon.
You got it.
Pleasure. Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.